So, okay, so this is some video which Fraser put together
This is my
because
gameplay.
because your game is too hard for me to play. Basically, you're telling me. So let's go through. We might sort of pause and what have you if we've got things to talk about. So the tutorial we just looked at, and this is the actual gameplay. This is what it's supposed to look like, or this is the first prototype of the actual gameplay. So let's have a look at that. Does it have any audio?
It should do. I think once it jumps in, it starts.
Oh yeah.
I am.
Although I do think I turn it down pretty quickly, so...
Oh, we turned on the mouse sensitivity. Well, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
You got checkpoint mode there as well, so you don't necessarily have to do checkpoint mode.
No.
Do you want to give us a
was
sort of
one
idea behind that, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things... I mean, if you look at games like Getting Over It and Jump King, there's no checkpoints. It's, part of the game is when you make a mistake, you have to, recover every step of lost ground.
Yeah.
And I think we spoke about it briefly, if I remember correctly, from the beginning, but it became more front of mind after we did our first playtesting session. And I think it was a case of we had a very specific type of player in mind, and when we were testing it and we didn't have that type of player, somebody who's very familiar with this type of game, this genre, and we started to shift things to be more accessible for a broader audience, I think for me at least, that's when it became more interesting to implement a mode with checkpoints so that you can restart and reset any lost progress.
So easy mode for people like me.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like to think of checkpoint mode and then, hard mode than an easy mode.
That does feel like the more fair way of putting it. I mean, especially because it's not easy with checkpoints.
Yeah, there's still quite a lot. Like, the jumps are all the same. You're still having to execute all the same mechanical skill. It's just a question of if you have to do it all in a row or if you can, have multiple attempts at it.
I noticed on the top right-hand corner, which I don't think I've noticed before, you've got a minus 11,000 meters. I kind of like that. I think, again, that's something that would be nice to be more prominent. Because it's kind of important that frames where you are.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe it's a case of it was more reactive. So having it pop up nice and big when you're hitting certain milestones. Because I do fear it could get distracting or just, in the way if it was too...
But when we were designing the UI for this, a big part of it was balancing clarity for the UI and clarity for the game, because we wanted it to be as uncluttered as possible of a view.
And I think it is one of the things I think is lacking the most is the UI. It's very much just sort of like a dev UI, like it's just the working...
Yeah, well, we did have plans for the UI, but we ended up with our artists not really having the time available to do the UI concepts that we had planned.
What did you have in mind?
Do you want to?
Oh well, at some point we had. Yeah, absolutely. We had this whole discussion of a UI layout that was sort of inspired by the interior of some sort of advanced diving suit sort of technology, taking some cues from how games like a combination of how sort of a game like Halo does its heads-up display with the interior of a helmet with little views there, and also combining that with elements of the design of games like Subnautica, with that sort of interior UI when you have the mech suit and things like that. The prawn suit, is it?
Yeah.
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 And there is inspiration from the prawn suit.
Oh,
on this
very much.
as
All
well,
the way
isn't
through the
there?
game.
Yeah.
It runs deep in the game's DNA, the inspiration from the Subnautica prawn suit. But
Yeah.
the other place that we were sort of taking some cues from for the HUD design for that version that we weren't able to implement was Dead Space, with that
Mhm.
notion of the diegetic heads-up display, where everything is part of the world, and so you feel like you're looking around the interior of a little helmet, and it's giving you the information that you need in little like dials and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So there would be quite a lot more on the final HUD if you were to sort of take this to the next stage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's certainly the idea. But again, it was all about a big part of the reason we weren't able to get it in the scope was just how important it was to balance the aesthetic factor of that and like that sense of polish and immersion with giving a very clear view for the player to navigate the environment.
So I just wanted to pause here because I think this is an important part. So this is part of the storytelling,
Oh,
yeah?
very.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what are we seeing
Yes.
here?
So we've got a collectible. This one specifically is a ruptured sort of air tank.
Yay. That
So
looks ominous.
there's a few different macabre sort of images, sprites you use throughout this first level of the demo. And similar to the question marks, you can walk up and interact with it, and you get presented with a bit of narrative text.
So we've got constant pressure from all sides. It has a warmth to it, like being under a weighted blanket on a still night. It blurs the line between self and other, inside and out. You'll miss it when it's gone, taken, but it will return to you. It always does down here. Okay, nice. So
Yeah.
let's see.
So the two of us were the ones that wrote the echoes. That was yours, right?
Oh, was it? I thought it was yours.
Yeah. No, that one has the much more poetic flair that yours tend to have. Mine go
Right.
for a little bit more yeah, I feel like your ones have a little bit more like sort of an Edgar Allan Poe to them, and mine have a little bit more of a Lovecraft.
Interesting. Yeah. Yes, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, one of my favorite games is Disco Elysium, and one of my favorite abilities in the game is Shivers, which will often interject with little narrative moments that are happening outside of the player's perspective, things that the player or the player character shouldn't know. And I really enjoyed that, and I like that. I really enjoyed that sense of storytelling, like finding something similar from the world to sort of give context to what the player is currently experiencing. And so I remember pushing for that quite heavily, that sense, which led into our echoes, as we've called them. Body parts or objects which have some piece of story connected to them, and through non-described means, the player is able to interpret that story from it.
You
Yeah,
are
there's
obviously
sort of this notion
skilled
of
at
it
this
being
game.
someone's, final memory.
Yes, you're obviously skilled at the mechanics in this game, Fraser. I'm watching
It's
you
a lot
play
of
here, and
practice.
yes, I'm sure I could not get that level. But that's part of what you're looking for. You're looking for a high skill set of mechanics, yeah, high skill game.
Exactly. And I think
Yes.
we talked about it several times in the development, but the idea of something like a grapple hook, very similar to the prawn suit.
Mm-hmm.
I think these mechanics we have are really good foundational mechanics, but there's not a. It's not that there's
Just
a
turning
lot.
off my music, why don't you?
Sorry. I forgot that was it. Yeah, I should have cut it out. Yeah, the mechanics are really. I think they're really good foundational mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
but it is missing a little bit of the skill expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would take some time, but coming up with something like a grapple hook mechanic where it has an obvious use, but also interacts with every other mechanic in a way that really sort of pushes it even further.
Would you add the grapple hook like later in the game?
Yeah, that's a It's a really tough question, and
Because I'm looking
We
at this.
we talked
and
a lot about iterative mechanics that unlock
Mm.
over the course of the game. I know that it was something that like when we got feedback from you, it was something that you really pushed for. But every time we sat down with it, we couldn't figure out a way to make that feel satisfying with like with the vision that this game has. Because a big part of the point of this style of game is that speedrunning factor where you have all of your core mechanics right out the gate, and it's all about how you learn to use them over the course, and then replaying with everything each time.
Okay.
So it
well,
was
that's,
it was a
that's
tough
fair enough. Yeah.
it was a tough thing because I think there was also an element of combining our understanding of like the feedback that we were receiving and understanding of trends in the industry and in the genre.
Sure.
Yeah.
I remember that jump that we just watched. I remember my heart leaping out of my chest because I thought I had failed it and was going to start from the start. I barely made it.
I hate that jump. That is one of the jumps that still messes me up.
Yeah.
It's
But
affectionate, but still.
yeah. Along that similar line of, like, no, I completely lost the thought. Never mind. I'm getting distracted by the glowing crystals. This was a
Glowing crystals.
this is one of the levels I designed. And yeah, this one is one that actually, so with our level design process, we outlined specific mechanics we wanted the player to have to use, and the idea was we would teach the player the mechanic piece by piece, and then by the end of the section, have them demonstrate their ability to fully engage with it. But this section that we've just passed through was actually one of the few ones that didn't specifically teach the player anything, but just had enough cool geometry going on that it made it in anyway.
I have to say, just watching, it's quite mesmerizing. Just sort of looking.
This is one of the uses for Vault that we didn't actually tutorialize, but I mentioned it briefly earlier. But it lets you hover, and so this section is all about sort of that fuel management, hovering from platform to platform.
Oh. Okay.
And so if you're watching that green bar in the top left, it gets pretty close to empty a few times.
Oh, so that's how it works. Like I never worked out how it actually worked. So
yeah.
I had the completely wrong idea.
Well, it's actually interesting that you say that, because that specific section there where they're hovering between the pillars, I only properly figured out, like, I only understood how to do that bit after watching this video when we were like finishing up development. Like that was definitely one of the bits that like even working on the game, that was a section of level design that confused me, because that was all you, Fraser. And yeah, I had no idea what to do for that bit until actually watching it executed.
This looks hardcore. This looks really hardcore.
So this is one of those moments where I'm like,
this is to break people, right? This is like.
Well, to be fair, actually, because this is another section that I designed. So you get through the hovering section, and then it's a split path. So you can either come up here and do this, which is actually really safe, because if you fail it, you just get put back to the start of this jumping section. Whereas the other path, the alternate path, it's still precision jumping, but less of it and less hard, but it's all over an open pit. So falling in that section without using checkpoints would send you all the way back, probably to the start. So
it still looks hardcore. I like the aesthetic and everything. I think it is a design, and also the design of the visual design, the level design. I think it works really well, but it just looks really hardcore.
Yeah, I think from that level design perspective, I enjoyed having the more difficult platforming be set over a safer net, and the easier being set over, that more dangerous net, and just giving the player. I mean, it's tough because the player doesn't know unless they go and try both sides.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that situation in which the player keeps failing one section and goes, well, I'll try the other one, and they go, oh, this is easier in this way but more difficult in this way. And that was one of the few times that design goal showed up.